And also, oh yeah, in the beginning, you can agree or disagree, but just do it silently. Yeah, and then you can talk. We can come up in the question-answer period, because it's sort of like a souffle. You want it to cook and then see what happens. So. So like when we were kids, if you were in an abusive situation, did you turn it on? Yeah. None of us were really trying to get into the moment, yes? Because we hadn't entertained the idea that we could be out of a moment, literally, yes? And I wasn't going home and asking my mother into my room and asking her to go over my playing with Wayne, and did Wayne have more fun than I did and stuff like that, and should I take playing lessons? None of that was going on because time hadn't set up yet, one thing. So I wasn't worrying about will I be playing next week, because I didn't have an idea of next week yet. So all these possibilities that we feel as so ordinary are really impossible without the mental processes. Yeah? So that guy got it fast. Came in for a second and he got it fast. It's a good sign of my success. I'm obsolete now. He's calling his friends, oh, you don't have to come. It's obvious, we're going to get nothing. Hopefully. So, again, non-duality, and it's just an invitation. This isn't a draft or a, I don't really care if you like it or not, really. It's just a seat assignment. It's compelling to share it, because just like if I saw a good movie, I'd want to tell you about it. Well, this was, this in time has proven to be the last answer. And a last answer is a damn good answer, because it negates all need for any other answers. And this sense doesn't come under review every 3 years, or there's a debate about it. It's just a being convinced of certain possibilities, really. And for me, I became more convinced of what I'm not than what I am. Yeah, I find out what I am by being convinced about what I'm not. Yeah, so I believe the whole activity of bondage of self, the feeling of being a long-lasting, independent, separate entity based on being the doer, the thinker, the feeler, the haver, the loser. Yes, basically an alpha and omega type, that we're causing quite a lot of stuff. That idea, that bondage of self, is really produced by the mental process being in the act of being identified as a self. So if you go into, not you, if the attention or interest goes into the mental processes, memory, thoughts, perceptions, you'll catch them in the act of being identified as a self. So the thought system, you can just see it. It reveals. You don't need to see it for a long time. 5 minutes will do. Yeah. The thought system is based on an implying or an assumption that you're a body. Yeah. And that you're a doer and a thinker and a feeler and a taster. It's just assumed. Yeah. And then the memories. You and I can only be pictured as a body in memories. You can't think about yourself as spirit 5 years ago. How would you picture yourself? Yeah. You're pictured as a body in the memories. You're thought about as a body and from a body. Yeah? And the perception sees things. We're not seeing nothing. We're seeing things. And there's a simple, I remember when I was 9 years old, I had an Uncle Fred that was very nice to me at the the relative parties. He'd slip $1 behind his back and stuff, so my mother wouldn't see him. And so, of course, I had a little liking for him. And he passed away, and my mother brought me to the funeral. And we were sitting there, and my mother asked me, do you want to say goodbye to Uncle Fred? I wasn't really that keen on it, but I said, all right. And she brought me to the casket. It was an open casket, and I looked in, and I saw Uncle Fred, and it was immediate. I saw, that isn't Uncle Fred. Yeah. The body was there. He hadn't been damaged. It looked just like the body of Uncle Fred, but without that animating principle, it was obvious not Uncle Fred. Yeah. And so in hindsight, I realized, well, why would I mistake the animation principle for the body it was moving through unless I was mistaking the animating principle for the body it's moving through? Yeah. So I thought Paul was a body, therefore I saw Fred as a body. But seeing the body without Fred, so to speak, in it, it was obvious that Fred was not the body. Yeah. It didn't look like, oh, Fred is vacant from Fred's body. It was like it had nothing freaking to do with the body. Yeah. So the mental processes, I see them as the thought system, the memories and perceptions, see us as a body. So when you're relying on the thought system to be the GPS, to be the navigational system of your day and your life, yeah, and you're relying on memories, and you're relying on, and when you're worrying about, and it's not you worrying, see, this is the key, yeah. The worrying claimed by the mental process implies there's a you that's worrying. There isn't a you worrying, it's just the worrying of the mental process, yes? This is the whole point. The bondage of self is the act of being identified as one. Yeah, that's the bondage, and it's happening at all times. If the difference is it's happening or is it happening to you? Once it's happening to you, you believe or feel or you have a sense that you're a doer when actions occur, or you're the thinker when thoughts are noted, or you're the feeler when feelings get noted. It's just an assumption or a sense or a repetitive habit of as soon as there's a recognition of a thought, the assumption there must be a thinker of it arises. This is the bondage of self. It's an activity. It never happened. It can never complete its mission, but if there's an engagement with it, it seems to have happened. So this is how selfing works. You're remembered as a body in the past, and you're worried about as a body in the future, and so it remembers you as a body. So it's, I was a body, I will be a body, therefore I am a body. The way it gets to its I am is in the initial obviousness of timelessness of I am. It gets to by I was and I will be, and then it assumes I am. Yeah? And so now you and I, as this, become the Alpha and the Omega, and if that's the case, something that's so has to seemingly be forgotten, or this whole story wouldn't have any liftoff. Yeah? So we have to forget what we are by the act of being identified as what we're not. And the double whammy is now you start looking for what you are from what you're not. Instead of seeing what you're not, you're looking for what you are from what you're not, instead of seeing what you're not from what you are. It's simple as that. It's just a correction. But when that correction is made, the horse is in front of the cart. Like Zen would say, blue is blue and red is red, and things become obvious. Yeah? That which is before is before. Not that which comes after is implied to be before. That which is before is before. And then you see self, that you see the production of you, a you, after. You see it. You're not looking from it anymore. You are seeing it. Yeah? And in that seeing of what you're not, that is the act of being what you are, which is seeing or aware. So you get to where you already are by just recognizing what you're not. Just like non-duality did not start singing the praises of one, it just was a negation of two. Exactly. That negation of two follows all the way through non-duality. There's a negation of the false reference, And then there's a finding out of the true reference. There's no going on a journey to find the true reference, because you are the true reference. There's no double correction. You see what you're not, and then you get a sense of what you are. You finally sense being what you are. Then you're located in that sense of timelessness, and you have an immunity to what's not happening. Which is the whole activity of the mental process. The mental processes are always presenting what's not happening to what's happening, which is us. And if we believe it, suddenly next week has an effect now. How could it have an effect? It's not here. How could 3 months from now ruin your life today? Or how can 5 years ago have so much influence unless what's happening was believing it, and we are what's happening. So when we as what's happening is believing what's not happening, it seems to be happening. It's not happening to me, it's driving you freaking crazy, but if I sit right next to you, it doesn't leap onto me. Yet, the same thoughts that are driving you crazy, if I held them as mine, they could probably drive me crazy. If I keep seeing them as yours, I have an immunity to it. It's not the thought, is it? It's the sense of mine. That's where the bondage is. It's not the thoughts are a vehicle for the bondage. Feelings are a vehicle. Actions are a vehicle. They do not produce the bondage. They're used to produce the bondage. The mental state claims all those feelings and says, I'm the feeler. So the feeling, it's like this, it's simple. Bottle, everyone sees it. I'm going to change its meaning a little bit. My bottle. Now the bottle implies the owner, yes? Bottle, yeah, my bottle. Thoughts, my thoughts. Feelings keep coming and going, my feelings start orbiting, yeah? Thoughts start orbiting, they start spinning around, and an amazing thing, it almost produces a thing. The obsession with this idea whips up a sense of foot, because we as what we are make the leap. Doesn't it feel like the thought system's playing to an audience? I remember with the drugs, I was a deep experience in addiction. I remember the drugs sure seemed like they were trying to convince something in there to do something that it knew was totally insane. And then, the idea of surrender is held in such high regard in spirituality, but in addiction, the idea of surrender of the disease is fuck it, basically. It leads you to fuck it, and then you're apt to do almost anything. You'll get loaded again after 20 years of sobriety. You have seemingly no power. You have power, but it's been commandeered. You're now giving everything you dreamt the power to affect you. Yeah. I don't see it. I see it as a verb. It's verbing. Everything is verbing here. Everything is dreaming. If you have a desire to escape a place, you've given it a freaking reality. That's the simplest thing. We're all trying to escape an imaginary place. Our move to get out of it is producing the in that we think we're in. You can't get away from the power that is wielded by us. Yeah? You and I are giving everything all the meaning as that it has based like on the Course in Miracles. That isn't a statement, it's an observation. They witnessed it, they saw that's what's happening. Yeah? That you and I are the dreaming of this dream. We forget that we're dreaming, which I believe is impossible, but you can seem to forget. It can appear to be to you, the dreaming, that you forgot that you're dreaming. And how does it do it? By being identified as the dreamt. It takes itself to be a body. And then suddenly now in this condition, I'm a body. Everything I'm dreaming has the ability to affect me as the body. Sounds like everyone's day. If you look at it. If you broke it down, it's everyone's day. You'll know the solution. You'll know the problem from the solution. If you get relief from the bondage of self, what you'll learn is about the bondage of self. You will not learn about the truth. You will learn about what was taken to be true. Like there's a great Zen master, Dogen, from Japan. He said to study Buddhism is to study the self. And to study the self is to forget the self. Because if you actually studied what you take yourself to be, you'd see you're not that, and you'd lose interest in its manufacturing, basically. And you are the source, you are the furnace of the factory. In English, it's the word my. Oh, it's cool, huh? If you put money there, health there, relationships there, I can change those words completely by not changing any of the letters. Put my in front of it. My money, my health, my relationships. I like everyone in this room to have a lot of money, but I don't want you to have any of my money. It changes the meaning. My changes the meaning to that which comes after. That's the activity of us in the obscure dreaming. We're giving meaning to things. Everything we come into contact, there's been an investment of meaning to it, and then that meaning bites us in the ass. If you don't see the exact nature of the wrong, it's sort of like how many people complained about gravity today in Seattle? They mistook the effects of gravity and pinned it on that steep hill or those stairs. But it was gravity. Gravity was producing the effect. We're misdiagnosing constantly. And you can have a professor of gravity come here and break it down completely and all like this. But the thing, all you need to do to know, all you need to know about gravity is to go into an anti-gravity chamber. When you're relieved of the effects of gravity, you'll know what gravity is. Exactly the same situation here. You know the problem from the solution. From the solution, the problem is an activity that the solution is engaged with, really, basically. Yeah. So, it's a great, Ramana, everyone knows Ramana Maharshi. If you read a lot of his writings, not his writings, people who wrote about his teachings, there's one that you read in a lot of them, and it's usually phrased as the problem or the greatest mystery, so it has a certain sense of meaning. And he says it simply, he says, there is a presupposing of a non-existent thing wanting to get salvation for the non-existent thing. Yeah, so this is the non-existent thing, yes? The existent is being mistaken for this, and now the animation, mistaken for this, wants to get salvation for this. That's it. That's a dilemma. And it says, if this is the case, then your spiritual practices themselves will reinforce the non-existent thing. How can they destroy it? There's his diagnosis. And then he presents self-inquiry, so that you ask that commandeered subjectivity, who am I? So that you'll never get a freaking answer, which is the answer, because there's no one freaking home as a thing. Yeah. So for me, when I heard these statements, like, this is to me like a spiritual shoe store. You walked in here knowing it or not, and you may have ideas what kind of shoes you need for your spiritual journey. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to bring out some shoes. I'm going to put them out, and if the shoe fits, wear it. Yeah, that's what happened to me. When I heard the statement by Huang Po, a great Zen master, that you cannot use the Buddha to seek the Buddha, you cannot use light to seek light, you cannot use big mind to seek mind. You can try it for eons and nothing's going to happen. It was pretty much clear. Yeah. Now the dilemma is, why isn't it happening? Why isn't the message getting through? Why is the message that you're a Buddha not getting through to the Buddha? Yeah? What's happening? Something is arising and claiming the message and neutering it, yeah? The mental process hears the message, like here, let's say you're a lion, yeah? And some people would resonate with that. They like the idea of being a lion. So you hear the message, you're a lion, so you're coming, you're a lion, you're a lion, you're a lion, but then it hits you, the ears, and the ears are formatted as a sheep. Yeah? So as soon as you hear the message, you're a lion, as a sheep, it translates it into, I can become like a lion. That's not the message. Yeah? So then you come to another talk, and maybe usually, you know, in non-duality, there's no monogamy. Everyone's fucking polygamous. They're seeing tons of freaking people constantly. So here you go to another person. Maybe you like their loving gaze or something. So you even more. But as soon as it hits the formatted, yeah, it gets into, I can become like a lion, because the first thing that's going to catch the message isn't you. It's the mental process. The mental process is going to claim to be the hearer of the message, and it's going to neuter the message. That's what happens, yeah? So you would think, was Huang Po a sadist? No. When he was talking to Steve, he wasn't seeing Steve as Steve. He was seeing Steve as the Buddha. And